Hi everyone, Janet McMorty here. I just wanted to make a statement about the WGA SAG-AFTRA strike. So, Second Act Actors stands in solidarity with the Writers Guild and our American acting siblings of SAG-AFTRA in this strike. If you have recorded an episode and are a SAG member, I will be reaching out to you personally with more information soon, but here is the brief version. I spoke with SAG regarding guest podcast appearances. Being on my show specifically and having your Second Act Actors episode air does not violate strike rules. However, if you prefer to delay your episode until after the strike, I fully support this and it is zero issue at all. Solidarity! Any promotion of work under contract within the episode is not allowed. I ask every podcast guest, as you know, if there's anything you're looking forward to coming up, which tends to include future projects. I will be cutting out of further episodes this part of the episode until the strike is over. So you may notice in my episodes coming up that a lot of people are Canadian actors, international actors, not SAG actors, because quite a number of SAG actors that I have reached out to have opted to delay their episode until the strike is over. And I fully support this. Second Act Actors stands in solidarity with the strike, and I love you all, and we hope that this ends soon and with all the good things and necessary things that you are asking for, because it needs to happen. Solidarity. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Maggie Fleming. Maggie was an event planner turned author and model, and she has a phenomenal story to tell from her journey working as an event planner, event coordinator with Tesla, and now pursuing a career in the more creative environment of modeling and writing. She has authored a book all about etiquette. She is a true Southern belle, and she is just an absolute joy to talk to. She and I have a lot in common in the fact that we have very logical brains, and we have a lovely discussion about seeing math as an art form. I just absolutely love that part of our conversation. She is a true joy. Please enjoy Maggie Fleming.
I'm very happy to be a guest.
I'm so excited to hear your story. Tell me all about yourself. I was reading all about you before we came on, and you have kind of your hands are in many different pots in the very creative world.
Yeah, so I mean, especially, right, it's fun. I think the title of this podcast, it being kind of, the second act. So, I mean, with my first act, it was really all about being, and I was new projects for a sustainability company. And so I just had the chance, honestly, to just do all kinds of things it was pretty much a startup at that time. And, that's really what I did as my first act was working for a sustainability company out on the West Coast. And, I'm originally from Texas, and they moved me out here and everything. And so I did that for a while. Just after graduating from school. It had nothing to do with my major that I had studied for. I just decided that I was going to come out here, really kind of, take a fairly big risk, right? Leave where you're from, go out and work for this company doing something I didn't even study for. So there's a lot of, ambiguity with that and kind of like, oh my goodness, I'm about to do this, but I went ahead and I did that as my first act, and so yeah, it was for Tesla. So I worked and this is back in the Model S days too. Like they only had the Model S, so it was pretty, wow, it was pretty intense.
What did you study in school?
I studied finance, so business. Like business, it's pretty much business math. I always was okay at math, so I went ahead and followed through, and I always kind of liked math. And so that's pretty much what that is in business, is business math. Can you do math? And you just kind of apply it with numbers and kind of be able to have your analytical self, be involved in your professional life. So
you did that for how long? And then now you've done a shift. Tell me more.
I did that for about 3.5 years, and at that time, Janet, it was like the average time, I think. I was talking with one of my friends actually, and she said it was less than this. I thought it was 2 years. Just the turnover of people was pretty high at that point. So staying for like over 3 years was an accomplishment for me too, just because there's a lot going on at one time and a lot of people are changing, and so yeah.
So you're there, and then what brought you to what you're doing now?
Right. So really, like, being able to be around those life-changing products at that time and very elite products. And, I think that's a lot of people would have probably had to wanted to try to keep staying, or stay there as long as they could with such a cool product. People even had the chance to like test drive those, or like you could go test drive. I actually didn't do that much, Janet. I don't even know if I ever did that because I was always trying to work on just the different projects I had. A lot of it was supporting the people at Tesla in the manufacturing time, like in the manufacturing area, and when it was really a heavy ramping. And, but I kind of felt like around, after a while, I was just feeling like I wasn't as engaged in what I was doing at work. The commute didn't help that much either. It was it was a pretty wild commute, you could say, as well. So just kind of throwing in those things of kind of feeling like I wasn't feeling as involved or, with what I was doing each day. I felt like I kind of had this moment of, I'm out here in California, right? I moved here. I'm out here and I'm in this kind of, close to the epicenter, you could say, of entertainment, right? And I had this feeling of like, it's now or never. Like I need to, right? We're going to be in this industry with other people who had this as their first act. And if knowing that I'm doing this already as a second act, I better get going. I better get started. If I want to be here, I don't know if you felt like that too, Janet, but it was kind of like, okay, these people had it as a first act. I know I have something different to offer, but I need to get going if I want to be able to be here. And so, yeah, it was kind of like a moment of it's now or never.
And that's a big vein that travels through a lot of people that I talk with. And I feel that. And I think there's a feeling of, and I know I've had this, and I'm wondering if you feel the same too, like you need to catch up because there's been people who've been doing this since they were 4 and were behind. But I had a casting director once just tell me that like you're not like behind anyone because of the life experiences you had that you're now bringing into this second act. I was like, oh, I never thought about it that way. What are your thoughts?
I really like that. I think it helps me feel a little bit more of relief, you could say, just of when and that it's like a beautiful path that we've been able to make. And so I like that director. I hope you got to work with him more and do a few projects with him.
So yeah, tell me about that shift and what that looked like. Like, what did you do when you had that realization? And then how did you build and grow?
So with that shift, which is it's another pretty big shift. I mean, and I will say it wasn't actually, it was a big shift, but I don't know if I would say it was as big of a shift maybe as you would have thought, in that, I'm in this industry, but it's not, I mean, like you too, Janet, but it's not like the only thing that I do. So I'm doing other things at the same time. So, I mean, when you say it's like a huge shift, yes, it was a shift, but I mean, I'm still doing there's other things going on. I'm still doing other, which we'll talk about later, right? With like the other endeavors that are going on. But it was a shift. The big shift being like day to day, what I was doing each day is very different. Before I was doing more of like new projects that had the analytical piece of it. So like I would be doing, heavy projects that were number related, or I had to work with a lot of cross-functional stakeholders to work out these projects, maybe with the finance team or a recruiting team, kind of being able to be the person to help balance these things internally with the company, as well as I actually did like a lot of events, which that comes out later with what we'll talk about too. But I did, I brought over 60 people to a Warriors game for Tesla employees, which I don't think that had been done before. I basically pitched this to my bosses and I was like, what do you think of this? Like, our employees are working really, really hard, because this was when they were building, sometimes I think even double the amount they were building the previous quarter. It's just these statements were being made by the company leaders and to Wall Street and to the banks of what we had to build. And basically what they said, we had to figure out how to build. And so whatever was promised, we had to, so really these, early mornings, late nights, days, weekends, holidays, so them doing these really remarkable, unbelievable things. We all had to really have, one mind, one team approach to how we were going to do these things together and really come together if we were going to be able to do it. And, as well as we brought puppies in for the first time. That was an idea that was pitched and supported. And, just sumo wrestling we got the sumo suits out. So there was just a lot of, music, outside entertainment coming in. So just trying to help the people of Tesla, and especially these people who are kind of just spending wild hours, I would say, in the factory. This is when there was only one factory, and just seeing what I could do, and then see if the bosses would be okay with this, right? To be able to make them smile maybe a little bit more, that day, or have that be something that they talked about with their loved ones when they finally did go home. Like, what'd you do at work? Like, well, there were puppies today, or like we stopped by and all the puppies were adopted. It was with the Humane Society, so I think it was a really fun thing. So yeah, it was. That's and then going to, with modeling, that's it's way more external facing, I would say. So like when you were saying you work with the directors, or where you had the chance to talk with directors. So I did more internal stuff before. So for the company, it was kind of funny because probably you would think kind of HR-ish, but I wasn't part of HR. I was part of the actual, it's called powertrain is what it's called in the factory. So it's really kind of the essential components, or the kind of the unique elements of the Tesla is the area I was in. So a lot of engineers and, hardware engineers, or people working on the actual physical elements and tangible pieces, of the car in the factory, as well as, all the people in there who are actually putting the pieces together. In the factory. And then, yes, you go to modeling, right? And it's or at least I do more of the modeling side, which, but it's just way more external facing. Like, you're working with clients, you you work with them for a few hours. So just very different dynamic in that not only like the people who you're spending time with, but I don't know them very well, but you just kind of, you do what you can for a little bit and, give it what you got each time. And so that's very fundamentally different when you talk about what is the shift. The shift was the people who I spend time with and how well I know them. Before it was more internal, working with employees, and now it's more client facing and external. And I have to, I just kind of do what I can for a little bit, and then I'll probably see them again, in a couple of weeks or sometimes. So yeah. So the people, big shift.
Well, and I think, what did you do? So a big thing I hear from people who are doing a big shift like that is when you move in, and it's about people, right? For both of the careers. But how do you start in an industry that you didn't like, how do you build a community? How do you get your name out when you've been so inwardly facing to now? How do you start a modeling career in LA, which is a loaded question because doesn't everyone want to do that, right? The American dream. But like, how do you find those connections when you're coming at this, not starting when you're 5?
I think that's an excellent question. Probably for you. I would love to hear what you have to say after this too. But I mean, I think that not knowing what I didn't know, right, having a level of just being naive would helped me. I would say that. That's pretty much what for beginning, as in not knowing certain things when I started, I think just overall. And then later on I learned it and it, it worked out. But having an agent, I'm actually not, and I'm not in LA. I'm in the East Bay. I'm in like the San Francisco Bay Area. So that's also different as well as that I'm up north, but I'm still in California. But I think having an agent really, that's the person, right? Like that's the person who gets you in the door. At least I don't know if that's how you are if that's how you but that's the person who gets you in the door. And then if you're in the door, then that you decide what's going to happen next. But they help you get in the door if you're not in the door. And then, I mean, sometimes later on, there'll just be, I'm sure you have a story like this too, Janet, of just like a weird coincidence. You're in a hair salon and you just meet someone else who's in the entertainment industry too. And they're like, oh, you did this. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, hey, I'm going to let you meet this person. And then, so I had some things happen like that, as well as I'm in the hair salon. I'm getting my hair, like I'm doing getting a little trim or something like that. And they're like, oh, and then something like that organically does happen, which is fun.
We hear about the scams that people fall for, right? And I think the acting industry is riddled with them. I'm going to assume the modeling industry is riddled with them. But I think, and this is tooting our second act horns, is so good at like kind of weeding out what are scams because we've lived life before. Is that something that you noticed when you were kind of being pulled into your modeling career? Or is that something because because I know having an agent protects people from scams, but was that something that was involved in your shift? Because it's something I hear a lot about second act actors being nervous and worried that they're just going to get scammed.
I think that I really just counted on, I have a certain level of trust, I would say, with my agent and that team. That, I mean, they're never going to put me in a situation, or at least not intentionally, to where it's not legit. It's not really where I'm supposed to be. And if there ever is a situation like that, I'm just supposed to call, or if I feel like something's weird, I just call or leave, or tell them something like that. So, yeah.
That's great. It's great to hear. Has there been anything that has surprised you about this now new career that you have?
Oh yeah. I mean, so I think that the last thing, or something that is most surprising, and I'd be interested to, because you're on the East Coast, right?
Yes, I'm in Toronto.
Oh, okay. So you're in Canada. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
So with something that surprised me a lot, which it still does each day, it's just the last minuteness of it. I think I made up a word. It happens sometimes. Just the last minuteness of it is that I will have a client who has planned in advance, right? Okay, you're going to come in at this time on this day for this amount of time. I'm like, okay, great. And then you'll have another client who within 24 hours or 48 they're trying to have you come in, and I'm like, it's tomorrow. I already have something going on tomorrow, or like, and then we can't, like, I'm not going to see that client. So it's just, I think that's something that's surprising to me sometimes, is I feel like something that, well, I mean, just the one, when you have other ones who do plan a little further in advance, and then you have ones that are on the 24 to 48 time frame, I'm like, so it's like you want to contribute to both, but you kind of have to go with the one who asked for you first. So that's something that surprised me, is, okay, I'm not going to be able to go tomorrow. I already have something. What about you? without question. What surprises
That
you?
you hit the nail on the head. And it's funny because like you've used the term analytical a couple times, and I love that word because it describes me to a T. And the biggest surprise for me was exactly that, and having to relinquish some control over routine and having things being kind of up in the air and not knowing to the last minute, like, oh, we want you on set at this time, or you have an audition and it's due like tomorrow. Like, but my routine. It's like, no. I kind of have to get out of my logical brain and kind of let things flow a little bit more and relinquish that control, because there is no control. Yeah, it's hard. I find it tricky, especially when, and let me know what your thoughts are. Like my first act, which I still do practice medicine, is very very routine, right? It's like the 9 to 5. I've got the commute that I know. This is going to happen on a Wednesday. This is going to happen on a Thursday. And when that shift into acting happened a bit more, and that was just not a thing, there was no routine, it threw me for a loop. Like it threw my physical body for a loop, and threw my, mental health for a loop as well too. When you were younger, were you artistic at all? Or were you more, because again, the word analytical, kind of logical, were you more mathematical brained, or were you involved in any kind of creative things growing up?
So I was actually always a little geared more towards like exercising and sports. And I always liked running a lot. And it got turned into more of team sports later. But I mean, I think the fact that you mentioned analytical, so I'm curious too if you liked math. Did you like math?
Yep, I have a physics minor.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, physics is so cool. I did take physics before.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, physics is awesome because it's all about it's kind of sports science, right? That's how we learned about it.
Well, I have a kinesiology degree. Yeah, I love sports science. I work in sports medicine. Yeah, I love it.
So I think math is an art. So, and I think more and more they're teaching that as well. It's becoming STEAM, right? Science, technology, engineering, art, math. So more and more, I think that it's being recognized as well that art, and, some people already consider that, but art is a math. And so the fact that that math is an art, my apologies. So the fact that I liked math, I think was related to art at a young time. I thought it was interesting the way, the formulas and the way that you were able to create things through math. And so getting to be in there, and when you reach a certain level of that, which happens sometimes, a little bit more in college, it does more and more become kind of this interesting, different type of, but kind of I would say an art. So I think that math was when I was a child, more and more now, right? But when I was a child, I do think that was something that I already had was already close to, was having a bond with being in that area of a way of me to connect to art. I always kind of like to just see what I could do with numbers and find other people who also kind of enjoyed that as well. I wasn't on a math club, but I did do sports. I did do sports. I did a lot of different sports. I always liked exercising too. I think that's important with wellness and stuff. I think sometimes when we're not a child anymore, we forget sometimes to stay physically active and go out and make sure you take care of yourself almost on, if not almost on a daily basis. So I think that I always gravitated towards, when I wasn't studying, I was trying to just go out and kind of have friends and, spend time with friends and do some exercise, running, volleyball, basketball, soccer.
I love what you were talking about with, STEM now turning into STEAM, because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, it was like you had a choice between two paths. It was like your science or your art, right? Like you went to a Bachelor of Science or you went to a Bachelor of Arts, and neither of the two shall meet. And I think, and that's why, again, I know for myself, I was noticing I was burning out in the science road even though I do love it, it's because I didn't allow the art road to meet the science road. And so I'm thrilled to hear that it's being taught more and being appreciated and almost being like, I don't know, like reevaluated in our brains, thinking of it as an art form, the math. And I just think that's so exciting for kids these days to be doing. I would love to know a bit more about now how you're kind of mingling the two. Like, have you brought anything from your prior career now into more of the artistic pursuits that you're doing?
I would say definitely something that is still relevant for me, being that I was, kind of more businessy, right? I was in the corporate environment. I actually, before I worked at Tesla for years, I also was in the banking industry. That's where my more formal education comes from, is more of a banking. It's kind of like a little bit of a banking feel as well. It's professionalism. So I definitely still have a level of professionalism, I would say, that I bring that too. It's more, I honestly think sometimes clients are kind of shocked, Janet, just because it's not so much like the way I dress necessarily, right? Or the way, it's more about just, I guess, how I approach it. It's, I've been told before that I do think, like, for modeling, that I've done things extremely well, but it's almost too fast. That's what they tell me. They're like, you did it extremely well, but you almost did it too fast. I'm like, maybe too fast. And I'm like, why? And so they almost make it kind of like, and to me, I'm like, that's a sign of professionalism for me, because I'm trying to do it basically as quickly or as extremely well as possible as I can, and in as quick of a time as I can. The less shots or the less cuts of something, right? Less takes. And, if this is acting or less amount of shots if it's modeling, but because that's kind of what I think one of the goals is to, do it as absolutely well as possible. And cause you're giving people time back. And I think that's a great gift to give people, is their time back. And I don't think that people get that back very much. So I think professionalism is something really that I've brought from one area to the next that has helped me. And I think it almost shocks people a little bit at times, because apparently that's what
I love that. And I love the idea of giving people their time back. I've heard before, like, we have three finite resources in our lives: time, energy, and money. And they're the most important things, sadly, for the money part. But like, time is something, that's so rare to be able to give people time back, because the expectation would be the exact opposite. So that's really interesting. I like that a lot. And adding the professionalism piece in there makes total sense, because again, you have that from your first act, right? That's been brought in. Well, it's ingrained in you as a human being, but built up over the first act, which I think people who haven't had that will be lacking compared to you, for sure. How could they not be? Why, out of all the myriad of careers you could pick, why modeling? What drew you to modeling?
I think also with my background in events, or doing events for thousands of people, there's a level of there's an eye for it, right? You have to have, there's a certain, it's kind of a visual thing, or it's something to do with just how you see things. And I think that that's also involved in modeling. I always love being able to talk with the director if I can, or talk with the photographer. If there's a photo shoot, or something that we're working on, I'm giving ideas too. They might throw them out, right? But I'm giving ideas as well about different things that we can create, visually, right? It's I do paint sometimes too, so I think that kind of comes into play. But I think that that's something that is what draws me more to modeling and to print, is more like magazines, for example, or something along the lines of that. Is just there's like more of a I'd say there's just more of a kind of a visual classic element that comes into play that also is translated from events. I have like this, you can have like a, just a picture. You can have like a picture, right, of what you think that that you're aiming for, or what you are. And it might be a little different. It might be a little bit better, that it comes out, but you kind of have a picture in your head that you are working towards, or that you can kind of see, and you can paint that with the director, right, or the more the photographer is usually who I'm using. Like, they're telling me, or I'm talking with them. And so I think that that's something that modeling and events, or there's an eye for it.
Do you think that was taught, or is that teachable, or is that something that you've always had?
Oh, I mean, it has to be coming from teachable moments. Because I didn't know anyone, Janet, in the entertainment industry before I started. So this is totally, I think it's teachable, because it's definitely not coming from I didn't know anybody. I did not know anyone in entertainment when I started. So it's not from someone who I knew before, and then I'm from I'm from the South, and that's not really what's going on there either. So it's definitely coming more from just people once I'm here to kind of, just teaching me or coaching me on what's going on, what are we doing, and running with it. And yeah.
Do you have any advice for anyone who might be feeling similar to how you felt in your time at Tesla and thinking about making a change?
I would say have an agent and stay classy. I think that might be from Ron Burgundy, right? Stay classy. But I think having an agent really just helps you get your foot in the door, or know what's going on, especially if you're coming from somewhere else. If you have a first act that's really different, I think finding an agent that in your local area to start just really helps you go. You have to start looking that up, or doing those things. But I don't know if you have an interesting story with that. I kind of do, just because I didn't know that. The story with that is that I just walked into one, and I didn't know that I had to have an appointment or anything like that. It ended up working out, but apparently sometimes you do have to get appointments for these things. So just so y'all know, you can't just necessarily walk on in, but then stay classy, have class with what you do. But yeah, those two things.
Yeah, I think we can't overestimate, I don't know what it is, but the stay classy, because I think this industry, and I'm sure acting, and I'm sure modeling is the same. And honestly, to be honest, all industries are small, and people talk, and word gets out. And I think especially when you're building a second act career, or even just building your first act career, it's so easy to build. And then if you're not classy, you can just wipe out all the things that you've done, right? And I don't know, some of the stories you hear from people, especially people like directors or writers or people who are more behind the camera, the stories you hear about people in front of the camera, you're like, oh my Lord, they're not listening to Ron Burgundy, and they're not staying classy, but word gets out, right? I don't know. Do you have any favorite moments from your time modeling, any funny moments or anything like that, things that you really remember?
Definitely a funny moment is that, or something that I thought was just kind of like, oh gosh, something like this would happen, is just one of my photo shoots I was doing. We were having a photo shoot, and it was like an all out, it was a long photo shoot. And I'm actually one of the ones who, right, similar to what I shared with you at Tesla, people want to go test drive cars, or I'm kind of like, hey, I'm working, or I'm trying to do something else for another employee, help someone else out, and I think I would have been fine to just keep going. On this photo shoot we were having, it was going to be a formal wear photo shoot. It was going to be a casual wear, outdoor. We were just doing it all in one day. And there was swimsuit too. We were doing a swimsuit piece of it. And I don't know who decided this, right? But the swimsuit was last. And so we did everything, and then we had swimsuit, but the team, a group of nice guys, right, doing a great job, but they wanted to go get pizza as a break. And so we all went and got pizza, and they're like, Maggie, why are you eating? Why? I'm like, well, do you think it might have to do with we got one thing left, and it's a swimsuit? We haven't done the swimsuit. Like, so of course they were like down in the pizza, like loving it. And I'm just like, I can't this is like horrible. You're eating the pizza in front of me. And they're like, come on. They're like, now you eat pizza. And I'm like, we're about to do swimsuit, the last thing of everything, you know? So anyways, it was kind of funny just because, no, I'm not going to have pizza right before swimsuit, the last thing at the very end of the day. Why didn't we do this first? Why couldn't we do swimsuit at the very beginning? You know, or in the middle, you know, right at, have the swimsuit and then the break, you know? Why do I have to do the break, then swimsuit? Let's think about this. I'm not having pizza. You know?
You hired me. I'm still working, but come on. Oh my God.
Nice guys though. They're all very, you know, I've worked with them a few times, but I was just kind of like, you know, I'm not going to have pizza.
I love all the event stuff that you were doing at Tesla, because you've now transformed that into a book that you wrote, right? About like event. Tell me more about that.
Yes. So I am from the South. I'm from Texas. I did do events for years, right? For thousands of people. And then being from the South, I did go to etiquette school. I went to etiquette school. I was a debutante as well. And then also, right, the book has even been internationally recognized, as well as it's been recognized on the top publication in one of the top publications in the United States. So it's just gotten a lot of, great attention, which is really fun because a lot of designers worked on it too, and editing went into it. And so it's really an all-in-one hospitality book. And so really looking at, right, etiquette and manners, as well as decor, as well as food, as well, there's etc. So there's just a lot of different things that went into this, and a lot of different eyes that went in, looked at this and weighed in on this. And so it's been, I'm excited. I think people are enjoying it, and I hope they continue to like it and share about it too, and if they do like it, so that someone else can read it and have a chance to enjoy it as well.
And it's called The Art of Entertaining.
Yes. The Art of Entertaining.
Yes. And I will link in the show notes below. Was that something that you'd always thought about doing, or why write a book like this? Like, what inspired you?
This is a theme in my life. I feel like, Janet, is like, I didn't grow up knowing like I'm going to be like, when I was 6, or, when you talk about this, I'm going to be a model when I grow up, or I'm going to be, I didn't, that wasn't going on. I didn't really say when I was little, I'm going to write a book. Like I didn't, so I think just it kind of naturally progressed. I had an opportunity where I had a coach. I'm big on, no matter what your age is, having people, right? Someone else might say a mentor in this situation, but I think I like a coach a little bit more. I think people can kind of understand that term, and that it feels more hands-on. I had a coach helping me with how to write a book, right? Because when you've never done something like this before, you're kind of like, how do I start it, right? What am I going to say? How is it going to look? There's just a lot of these different questions that you don't think about before you're doing it. So I had a coach help me. I tried to go to a different location to write the book. So I even went somewhere else. I went to like more of a foresty location, which is actually where you can find the book on forestyhome.com. So I kind of went to a more foresty, which that's kind of, someone else might go to the beach. Right. Or you have to go somewhere, I think, to help you be able to, I think, find more of an inspiration just to write, to be able to kind of, to do that. And so I went somewhere else, and then I basically was thinking about, where am I way more or significantly more maybe advanced in one area than someone else, or where is that? And, with the doing events for years for thousands of people. I actually, growing up too, I either hosted or co-hosted quarterly for at least 35 plus people, doing events as well, or doing, running events for at least 35 or more quarterly growing up for a long period of time. With the etiquette school, debutante, being a debutante, it's really, I thought hospitality, I'm Irish American, so Irish are known for hospitality, just treating people really well. And so I think that, that kind of stems from my family as well. And so I think it just really came more from trying to bottle it up, into something that have all these pieces be able to come more together. It's kind of an all-encompassing, approach to hospitality, and thinking about a lot of different elements that are involved, more just with also how, right? Because I even touch on etiquette and stuff too, which I think most of the time people don't necessarily, people go more only for food, let's just say, or they focus more on the food elements, let's say. It's it's my book. If there is food in there, but that's not the only thing, right? There's other things that come into play with the hospitality that are laid out more in the book for people to understand. And this also relates, back to a little bit with the classy part of it. So that kind of, with being classy. So it can relate to, like you had mentioned, like any industry, some of this information. And so while there is a lot of information in this book, some of this also relates to the having class. And sometimes that's not all. I do not get into how people should dress. I will say that in the book. I do not say how to dress on these different occasions. I did not do that because that changes. I wanted this book to have a timeless feel about it. And I felt like if I were to get into clothing and, that won't be I wouldn't say as long lasting. I wanted to have this book to have more of a timeless feel. And so I did not do clothing, but I mean, there are definitely things about, how to carry yourself and the way you should speak and et cetera on that related to etiquette and manners too. So there's a lot of, I think, really valuable insights that have gone into this book. And a lot of people have weighed in on it.
And I think what struck me so much just about reading bits and hearing your story is what you were saying about how it's just so all-encompassing of what you've done. And it truly is, right? Like everything you're talking about, it's professionalism, it's staying classy, there's creativity involved in this, there's the art piece, there's also a very analytical brained person putting this book together and bringing people in and bringing experts and stuff like that in as well too. It is so all-encompassing. And I think that is really special. Like, what an incredible, not only gift to give to the world, but also for yourself to just realize how much of an all-encompassing, well-rounded human you are. And then here it is in this legacy. Like, that's so cool.
Well, thank you. It is for people to enjoy, but it was, I'm not going to act like it wasn't kind of fun making it. It was difficult as well. I mean, it took a long time.
How do you think, or do you know how, your parents, loved ones, guardians, how do they describe what you do for a living these days?
I would probably say more of a Jill of all trades. So just doing a lot of different things, trying to have things come together and flourish professionally and, career-wise, and just overall being also a uplifting force as I'm doing it is really probably how they think of it. Just doing a lot of things.
That's really awesome. Doing a lot of things. I love it. Do you have anything you're looking forward to coming up?
I think this is fun. I mean, we're doing this right now. I think that podcasts, I really enjoy. I like continuing to be on podcasts. I think it's a short form of art. And that is something that I do love. I love staying close to. That's definitely something that was involved in the book as well. Is there's an art element. I mean, I told you kind of events has an eye for something. So this book has also there's a visual element to a book that you wouldn't really necessarily expect for when people read it. And so, I mean, with the art, so doing more podcasts, I think it's a great opportunity. And it's also it's not right. So much effort and energy went into making that book. Podcasts, right? I think when you do other projects, there's a lot more, podcasts are more of a short form of art. And so being able to do more short form art, at least for a little bit, because I have done, you could say, a long form recently. It's just I think it's really fun, and I love being able to meet other creative people and support those other creative people, and, do more collaborations with them, because I think us creatives have to stick together. And, there was a time not that long ago where it was really hard, I would say. There were a lot of struggles for creatives and everybody, in a different really as well. But it was a lot less. So being able to come together more now, and, it's been I've really enjoyed that. And I think that that's very exciting, doing more podcasts and collaborating with creative individuals.
Absolutely. And I think, again, it's so about what we talked about right at the beginning about finding a bit more of that finding of the community. When we have a second act, it's really tough to do that, especially if you came from a career where you were more inward facing and now having to be a bit more introverted versus extroverted. I think getting to meet people, especially in the virtual realm like this, is just so it's just so exciting and wonderful. And you just realize how much creativity there is in the world, and that people are constantly expanding that, like you putting your book out and stuff. It just is, it's wonderful. I'm right there with you. Yeah. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Have class. That's my advice. I'm keeping it simple, keeping it to the point from earlier too. Stay classy.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, Maggie, for being my guest this week. Everybody, take a look at the show notes below. You'll get information on how to take a look at her book that she just released, all about etiquette. It's a stunning, stunning book, and I know she's worked so hard on it and deserves every success that she has. Congratulations, Maggie. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and I hope you will join me next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye! Second Act Actors is produced and edited by me, Janet McMorty. Theme music by Guillaume. Additional sound editing by David Studio. Additional video editing by Jackie Wadoer. Show notes written by Sarah Hopkinson. I record using Riverside FM. If you're interested in developing an interview-based webcast like mine, I highly recommend this platform. Shoot me an email and I'll direct you to the wonderful folks there. If you or someone you know is interested in being a guest, email me at secondactactors@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and share with your friends. My love language is words of affirmation, so compliments, constructive criticism, and feedback are always welcome and encouraged. Negative Nancys, Judgy McJudgersons, or Debbie Downers, unless you're Rachel Dratch, regarding me or my guests are not welcome. It takes serious courage to share your story with the world, so if you're tempted to negatively comment about someone else's story, please ask your therapist why you're such a garbage person. Save the drama for the stage. On that happy note, I hope you'll tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!